Sartre himself didn't exactly discourage the kind of fashionable image that was growing up around him. He wrote lyrics for the singer Juliette Gréco and was often seen in the company of other glamorous women in a way that attracted media attention.
I asked him one day, but if you weren't a teacher and a philosopher, what would you like? What would you have been? I said, chanteur de charme.
But as well as being fascinated by Sartre's lifestyle, the media was also scandalized by his atheist ideas. The mainstream press attacked him continuously, accusing him of moral corruption and of spreading hopelessness among the young.
Sartre tries to rebuild the idea of freedom taken out of the Christian culture and to get rid of the power of God on human life. And so he comes to the conclusion that if God exists, man is not free, and if man is free, God does not exist.
I am my liberty. You had scarcely created me when I stopped belonging to you. Nature jumped backwards. I was ageless and felt quite alone in the middle of your well-meaning world, like a man who's lost his shadow. There was nothing left in heaven, neither good nor evil, nor anyone to give me orders. For I am a man, and each man must find his own way. You can neither punish me nor reprimand me, and that's why I make you afraid.
He says there is no God. Well, more than half the world is against him. That's how he's bad. That's how he's nasty. That's why he shouldn't be read. That's why he should be burnt. Then he says liberty is for everybody. Everybody's got right to liberty, got right to go everywhere, say everything, think everything, do everything. And they condemned him as they condemned Socrates. He didn't like being famous. It stopped him in what he wanted to do. When he was in his bureau with his paper, then it was all right. He gave rendezvous sometimes to people, but when he was stopped in the street for autographs or somebody who said hello, he hated that.
Forced to retreat from the cafes of the left bank by the attentions of the press, Sartre moved to live with his mother in the Rue Bonaparte. They lived quietly, often playing piano duets together, and Sartre was free to write, away from the prying eyes of the world.
Sartre, from childhood onward, was someone who had suffered when he couldn't be in control of the image that other people formed of him. This, for him, was hell. This was hellish. This was acutely worrying. The discomfort he felt whenever he thought about what other people were thinking when they were looking at him is fundamental to his existence and to all his writing.
Sartre tells this story about someone, I think it's in a hotel corridor, with their eye to a keyhole, completely absorbed in what's going on in the bedroom behind. And then they hear a step on the stairs behind them, and they suddenly become aware that they are a person looking at a bedroom scene behind a closed door, whereas before they were just looking at the scene.
And he's instantly transformed from being something that's just concentrated on trying to hear to being a human performing a shameful act. And he feels shame. And the very existence of shame proves that we are always under the eyes of other people. If we can even feel shame, this means we know that other people are looking at us, thinking about us.
We start thinking of ourselves as though we were an object. And so we construct an idea of ourselves as an item in someone else's world. And that's the point at which something like a self comes into being. The implication of this is that there is no way that people can, in the end, be comfortable with each other. It is always going to be impossible to think of yourself simultaneously as someone who is going around the world acting in it and being an agent, and also to think of yourself as being an object that other people are observing.
So there is always a conflict, and there's no such thing as human relations that don't involve this kind of conflict. And this is why at the end of huis clos, hell is other people, because we can't get away from this terrible gaze of other people on us all the time.
It's much, much more likely that you will hurt me.
Huis clos, or No Exit, with its unforgettable catchphrase, hell is other people, was Sartre's most popular play.
Look into my eyes. What do you see?
Oh, I'm there. Oh, but so tiny. I can't see myself properly.
But I can.
The problem of personal freedom being threatened by other people was not simply theoretical to Sartre. He carried his ideas into his personal life.
Sartre was partly dependent on Simone de Beauvoir and partly independent. He had said to her in truly Kantian fashion, we shall have there is a necessary love between us, but we shall also have contingent relationships, translated into ordinary English or French. This means, we have a deep, eternal affection, but I can go around screwing as much as I want, and so can you. I'm not sure that it suited her quite as well as it suited him.
Sartre was never sexually faithful to Simone de Beauvoir, or Castor as she was known. While maintaining a lifelong working partnership, each was free to have other lovers. He had many more relationships than she did, but Sartre's many mistresses found that they too had to accept his definition of freedom.
I remember asking Sartre, how do you manage with all these women in your life? And he would say, well, I lie to them, with his gesture of his arm. And I then said, to all of them? Yes, to all of them. And even to Simone de Beauvoir? And he would say, especially to Simone de Beauvoir, surtout au Castor.
Simone's most long-term rival was Michel Vian. She met Sartre in 1946, and they were lovers until his death. Her time with him convinced her that there were flaws in his idea of freedom.
Alors, la liberté, je l'ai conquise contre son idée de la liberté pour les âmes. C'est facile, vous comprenez, quand on dit les âmes, ça veut dire les hommes et les femmes. On sait bien que c'est pas vrai. It isn't true.
Simone de Beauvoir's experience of this kind of relationship undoubtedly fed into her book, The Second Sex. It was published in 1949 and explored the effect on women of the post-war freeing up of sexual attitudes.
La liberté extrêmement angoissante. Tout est possible. Dieu est mort. La morale, disons traditionnelle, en tous les cas, la morale bourgeoise a périclité. Donc effectivement, il n'y a plus de, de garde-fous.
People were moving about. They were anybody. Anything can occur. Anything can happen. I kept saying to myself in anguish, where shall I go? Where shall I go? Anything could happen. What was happening behind my back? Perhaps it would start behind me, and when I suddenly turned round, it would be too late.